Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to be covering my NFC South Dream Team. So let's not even just wait. Let's get right on into it. Starting off at quarterback, Kirko Chains himself. That is going to be the man I want at quarterback. If fully healthy come the season, which he should be, he really should have a pretty solid year. He's got a lot of weapons around him, from Bijan Robinson to Drake London. I'm even going to put Darnell Mooney in the mix at receiver there. I think he could have a pretty good season. And then you also have Kyle Pitts. So I think Kirk Cousins is easily the best receiver here within the division. And like I said, he's got a ton of weapons. Like you saw what he did in Minnesota. He had Dalvin Cook for the longest time. Used Dalvin Cook quite well in the offense. And then he always had TJ Hawkinson or a decent like tight end on the team, and he always utilized his tight ends, which is what he's gonna end up doing here in Atlanta. He's got Kyle Pitts. Like that dude's gonna go nuts this year. And then you look at his receiving core, and it could have been better. I think they fumbled the bag by drafting Penix. I think they could have drafted Odunze and like had like the best receiving core in my like or top five, I should say, in my opinion. But they have Drake London, who should have his best season yet. You also have Darnell Mooney, who I also think is going to have his best season yet. I think Darnell can kind of not be like completely like Addison from last year, but he's going to have a pretty solid season. I think he'll be more of the like KJ Osborne of the team as a wide receivers two instead of a three. So I think that Darnell Mooney is also going to have a really good year. I could see at least three of these guys going for over 1,000 yards receiving. If Cousins is fully healthy. And like I said, I think they fumbled the bag. They should have drafted a Dunzy over Penix. They already had their quarterback. They didn't need to draft it. They could have used a receiver or they could have drafted an edge guy. So um, I think Cousins still has enough weapons. I wouldn't doubt it if they signed one more receiver, but he's going to be my quarterback one there. And to top that on off, we're going to take a steam it there. Running back one is going to be Bijan Robinson. The dude is going to be nuts this year. Again, with Kirk Cousins on the team, I think that's just going to benefit him because they're actually going to have a pretty solid like passing game, and then on top of that, they're also going to have a really solid running game because they're going to be able to do it both. Bijan had a pretty solid year last year. He wasn't utilized fully to his extent. I believe they have a new coach coming on in, so that should change here this year. So we'll kind of see how that plays on out. I'm kind of excited to see what he does this year because it wasn't a bad first year, but it wasn't like the greatest, like what he was hyped up to be. But that wasn't really necessarily on him. But Bijan Robinson, easily the number one running back here in this division, in my opinion. Next up, Rachaad White. You look at fantasy points last year, he had more than Bijan, if I'm not mistaken. Rachaad White's gonna have another great year. That dude just was spectacular last year. He finally got the starting role. He took it away from Fournette after he left, and he just looked insane. It took him a few weeks to fully get going, but man, he was nuts. Like it was fun watching him all year last year. He is like gonna be the next up running back there. Him and Bijan gonna be competing all season long, along with Kamara. Like this division's pretty set with running backs. I think the Panthers are a little behind, but like you look at this division running back wise, and it's nut. They have three running backs who are receiving backs as well. White can receive, Kamara can, Bijan can. Like it is just nuts. So I would put Rachaad White here as my running back too. Going into wide receiver one, I'm going to take Mike Evans, Mr. 1000 every year. The dude has always been consistent, and you can't deny that. Like you have to pick him as your wide receiver one. There's not a whole lot more to say about that in this division. Like yes, you have Chris Olave, but like Mike Evans is the guy in this division. He is the top receiver, and I don't see that changing. Even though he's what in his 11th, 12th year, 10th maybe. I don't even know. I'm pretty sure it's 11th year. So like the dude's gonna go off again. He's gonna have another like 1,300 yards. To follow that up, I'm going to take Chris Olave. Chris Olave has shown what he can do. The only downside to last year was Derek Carr. They just couldn't get on the same page, and it showed because when Winston came in and played, he found Olave every freaking time. Like, trust me. For me, it was a friendly reminder when Winston came in. I was playing my dad that week, and my dad has Chris Olave, and he had like 30 points fantasy. Like this guy knows how to play. Carr just needs to get on the same page with him. And if Derek Carr can get on the same page with him, he's gonna have a great year, and he's gonna have about 11, 12, maybe even 1,300 yards. He could be competing with Mike Evans in that division easily. Like I personally think he is the second best receiver in this division, if not the first. Like the dude is insanely talented. Wide receiver three. This is where it's gonna get a little controversial. I'm going to take Deontay Johnson. I was going back and forth between Drake London and Deontay Johnson, and I just have a feeling Deontay is going to have a better year than Drake London. Yes, I know Bryce Young did not have the greatest first year as a rookie, but he was in a tough spot. He didn't really have a whole lot of weapons around him. And now they bring in Deontay Johnson, and they kind of are looking a lot better. Deontay Johnson will be under the wing of Adam Thielen, so I think that'll help. He's not going to be like clashing with George Pickens at all, so I think it'll benefit him a decent amount being in the system, and I think him and Bryce Young can get a really good connection going. So I think because of how talented Deontay is, and we saw it with Big Ben. Like I know people are doubting him, but when he was with Big Ben, he was a top receiver, top 10. I think he's going to end up being probably around the top 12 range with the receivers. I think him and Thielen will both have a pretty solid year. I think he's probably going to have about 1,200-ish yards, and I think he's actually going to have a touchdown production this year of a decent amount. I think he'll be getting like 8 or 9 touchdowns here throughout the season, which is pretty good for a receiver. I'm excited for it. He's on my team for fantasy, so like I'm super excited for it in my keepers league. So um, I think he'll have a good year, and I think he might even have a better year than Drake London, and that's just simply because I think Kirk Cousins has more weapons, from a running back who can receive to Darnell Mooney, who I could see even competing with Drake London at times here for like receptions and yards. Like I think there's just a lot more there. And then you got Kyle Pitts on top of that. Like that dude's gonna have an insane year. So I think personally I would take Deontay as my starter. I'm still gonna have Drake London on my team. You'll see it here later, but I think Deontay to me is probably the better fit on the team that I would want personally. To move on, obviously I've talked him up a lot. Kyle Pitts, I think he's the best receiver in this division without a doubt. I just don't think there's a lot of competition there. And that's really all I have to say. And he's got Kirk Cousins this year. Kirk Cousins has always utilized his tight ends when it was in Washington, when it was in Minnesota. Like you definitely saw that in Minnesota. Hawkinson each year with them at over 1,000 yards, outside of last year when both of them got hurt. But as a Vikings fan, that sucked because our team, Hawkinson, Cousins, JJ all got hurt. But that's off topic. But Kyle Pitts is gonna have a good year. This is gonna be his like true breakout year. They should utilize him properly. Kirk Cousins knows what to do on the field. He's gonna get him the ball. He is probably their most talented guy catching the ball off the line. Like Drake London's good and all. I think Kyle Pitts is probably the best guy there on that team. And again, that's another guy I'm excited for. He's on my team, so like I get to keep him. Like I'm kind of hyped up for it. But Kyle Pitts easily the top tight end in the division, and I'm gonna be taking him. My first backup is going to be Alvin Kamara, and I've always been a huge Alvin Kamara fan since he came into the league back in 2017. I really wanted to put him in my starting lineup, but I think Robinson and White will just have a better year. We have yet to see Kamara, I think, break 1,000 yards rushing yet in a season, and I think Bijan did that last year, if I'm not mistaken, and White's done it as well. So like, or maybe White hasn't, but I think both those guys that are starting are gonna have over 1,000 yards rushing. So I kind of had to put them in over Kamara. There are some upsides to Kamara. His quarterbacks always use him, so he does tend to get more reception. So if you're looking at this from a fantasy perspective, you might put him in over either one of those running backs. But I just personally would have him on my bench. He's getting old, and I'd rather have two young demons starting on my dream team than an older guy. But he's a good backup if one were to get hurt, on a so-called dream team. So like, why not have him on the bench? To follow that up, I do have Drake London, and yes, you can easily put him into the starting lineup. He's going to have a solid year. He's going to have over 1,000 yards. Like, there's no doubt about that. Darnell Mooney, who probably could be keeping pace with them, I personally think will also have a good year. So we'll kind of see how that plays on out. Like, I know he's going to be good. I just don't know how good and how much like Darnell Mooney will be in the mix, or the running back, in Bijan or Kyle Pitt. It's hard to judge. There's so many weapons there. I can see the ball being shared around quite a bit there. So I personally, again, would go with Deontay for now. You can definitely make an argument for London, though. I have no doubt about that. He could be like a starting guy on the roster I currently have. It's just kind of the route I went, looking at the teams and looking at the weapons, and I think Atlanta's better off, and it might make it a little more of a struggle at times for London to get the ball. And to round things on off, and this is going to be very controversial. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this. I'm taking Bryce Young personally. He was thrown into a tough spot. He didn't have too many weapons. People thought it would be Mingo. Mingo did not have the greatest year. Now that is not necessarily on him. Bryce Young did throw some really bad balls his way. He did target him a lot though, but it wasn't just to it's not just all about targets at the end of the day. Like, you got to get him the ball and get it in a position where he can catch the ball, and that wasn't always the case. So um, I think Bryce Young has a lot to learn, but now he's got more weapons. He was able to show that he could throw it to a receiver, and Adam Thielen, who's an old guy. Don't get me wrong, Adam Thielen's good, but like you have Deontay Johnson coming in. This guy's a freak of nature. Like you got to get him the ball for sure. So like I'm personally thinking Bryce Young's gonna have a pretty solid year. I could see him being a top 12 quarterback. People may not agree. He could even eclipse top 10 if they can just get some sort of running game going so they can get into a play action and get Deontay Johnson the ball or Adam Thielen. I could definitely see it happening. So that's kind of where I'm at. The only other person I would have picked here would have been Chris Godwin. Dude's really talented, but he's super injury prone. So I kind of swayed away from that just for now. But Chris Godwin would have been the other guy I would have picked. I just kind of wanted to get a backup quarterback, and if it's a dream team, I gotta have a backup just in case Cousin gets hurt or well, he's old, retires. So that's why I went down that route. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We also have a Snapchat, but we haven't done anything just yet on Snapchat. But Fantasy Fools PPR, check that on out. Obviously you're here on YouTube, so make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment if you want. Tell us what you want to see next. Tell us what videos you'd like to see in the future. We do have a lot planned here, as I've talked about in the last few videos that I've done. We have a whole lot planned, so be prepared, be ready for a lot coming your way once the fantasy football season comes around here. Be prepared, and I would definitely recommend subscribing because I think our insights are going to be a lot of useful insights, and I think you guys will quite enjoy, especially when we get into streams. And my dad and I go back and forth because we both are very strongly opinionated about certain players. So I'm telling you guys, it's going to be super, super interesting, and you're going to get some entertainment out of it. But for now, I'm going to sign on off, and I'll see you guys next time.